Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and we are back with patch postmortems. We normally don't do these on the first or last patch of a set, but we're on the second patch of Glitched Out, which means it's time to do a patch postmortem. And I'm continuing the new tradition here of inviting different guests on to talk about the patch and what worked and what didn't. And today I am joined by Wajan Iverson, who is coming off of the big tournament win at the Midset Invitational, has already qualified for the championship for Monsters Attack, so that's pretty sick. And you just won another tournament, the Ramen Bowl, I believe it was. So you've got to be doing pretty well. How you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I just had like a good day at school, so yeah, feeling good and feeling excited to be here.
Nice, cool. Well, yeah. So you've been doing really well this set. Obviously, going to be getting prepped, and I think are you participating in the Mecha Cup as well?
Yeah, I'm playing in Mecha Cup. I got the day 3 buy, so
Nice.
I'll be playing when it's being broadcasted and everything.
Gotcha. So if anything, you're like starting to look at PBE because that's on the 13.8 patch. So you'll be prepping for that, right?
Yeah. We were talking about playing some like scrims or like PB in-house games soon.
Nice, cool. All right. Well, if this is your first patch postmortem, basically what we do is we go through the patch notes and we talk about what worked and what didn't. So 13.7 was coming off of 13.6b, where it was a very Twisted Fate dominated meta. Does that sound about right?
That does sound about right. I do remember seeing like four Twisted Fates per lobby.
Yep. So obviously we were trying to address that. Made a bunch of changes trying to buff some stuff up. And so now it does seem, I think the vocal people are definitely talking about, Hacker, whether it be LeBlanc. Gadgetine has certainly moved up, which was funny because at the start of the patch it was very Infiniteam. And then that very quickly shifted to the Hacker, and now Gadgetine is looking even more dominant than Infiniteam was at the start of the patch. And as well as some quick draw as well. Is that about wrap up, the current state of things?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. Like Quick Draw, Hacker, and then Gadgetine and Infiniteam are a little more situational, where a lot of the time you want like a +1 to play them.
Right. The augments are definitely, yeah, that makes sense. So cool. All right. Well, let's run through these changes. And as always, if anything comes up, let me know. But let's see. Item distribution. You are now guaranteed a minimum of 6 full. I mean, this is just, yes, we shouldn't have broke this in the first place. Hooray. It's fixed.
Yeah, it feels super bad to have like 11 components and everyone else in the game has 12. Like you're basically just down a full item, and in that kind of game, like items are pretty scarce, only 6 full items. So I think it's a really good change.
Nice. All right, Gadgetine. So we buffed up Gadgetine 5. I think at the time it was like, hey, nobody's playing Gnar, nobody's playing Gadgetine. I think in hindsight this was a mistake. I mean, obviously, Gnar's doing really well, but I think the reality is, Gnar was already actually pretty good and people just hadn't quite figured it out, combined with, the Hacker being changed a little bit. So I don't know. This actually ended up being, it was such a small change, it really shouldn't have happened anyway, and I ended up being kind of bad. So I wish I hadn't made this change.
Yeah, I think if anything, like maybe Gadgetine 3 could have used like a little bit of a buff on the damage and damage reduction, because if you look at where it's currently at, like 5 Gadgetine Gnar is like super dominant, but 3 Gadgetine Gnar doesn't actually look very good in the data. So
Yeah, it's kind of the structure of the trait, because I'm always concerned that like as 3 Gadgetine gets stronger, it becomes like the dominant early game option. But you might
that's
be right. There
useful.
might be room to go up. I could see that. Cool. Hacker. So, I mean, the bug fix here is obviously good, but this was getting it back to its 13.6 values. And you know what? Maybe it didn't need its 13.6 values. Maybe it was fine where it was. Yeah, I don't know. Hacker, like, LeBlanc has been so dominant mostly because of the Omnivamp. It's like, even if you do manage to damage her, she goes right back to full very quickly. The fact that you're allowed to run Edge of Night on her is a common item just to go back to full. So I think this was a huge miss, personally.
Yeah, I think this was kind of a miss. Like Hacker can be very frustrating to play against, but I think at the same time, this it was kind of hard to foresee that it would become such a Hacker dominated meta,
Yep.
because in 13.6, Hacker was seeing like almost no play at all at the like 20% omnivamp value or whatever. So it's hard to imagine that like this small change could have had such a drastic shift in the meta, but it did.
Yep. Yeah, and you know how it is. Like, as soon as people figure out a way to play it too, right? And I mean, the other thing, obviously, is like with Twisted Fate getting worse, I think that also helped as well. So, yeah. Infiniteam. So, this is another example of where we're trying to make changes. We're behind. We have to lock our patch a week behind. Because at the start of 13.6, Infiniteam was not played that much. It was not considered very good. But then players like Robin Song started really popularizing it. And so this buff shouldn't have happened. But what I'll say is the 3, I think, was actually correct. I think the 3 buff here to 50 was fine. But I think the 5 and 7 did not need the buff, is my read on this.
Yeah, I agree. I remember I was like kind of surprised to see this change at the time, but it makes a lot more sense if it was finalized like a week before. Because,
Yep.
as you said, I remember seeing Robin. He was playing like tons of Infiniteam, and like I think a lot of people thought that Infiniteam was only playable like if you could play 7, but then people started to realize that 5 was actually very good as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think Robin really popularized that like Ezreal 1, Ultimate Ezreal 1 could actually be quite good. And so that bumped it up in power, I think, a lot in perception.
yeah, for sure.
Laser Core. I'm pretty happy with this change. I think Laser Core being able to go 4-piece and like be played around and not have that giant spike from 4 to 5, I'm really happy with this. Numbers wise, I think it's okay. It still has the same problem it's always had, which is Laser Core is very good if you hit it early with a +1, and then you dominate, but then you do fall off because it's flat damage. I don't really know how to fix that without the flat damage, but I will say that the change to 4 getting a drone was a success, and I think generally these numbers feel about right for what it can be.
Yeah, I agree. I think like Laser Core is in the best state that it's been in for all of the set, or like even since PvE. Um, I think the change to 4 was good, so I think overall this is like quite good. And I think the bug fix so that like hacker and target dummies no longer get a drone is
Yeah.
also a big deal. Like
Yep.
before, you were incentivized to always play hacker, and then your Warwick it would immediately get 2 drones.
Yep.
But I think now it's played a lot more how it should be.
Yep. Agreed. Parallel. So this is a questionable one because it did buff Ultimate Ezreal, but I actually like this because it incentivizes you to play Parallel. So I don't know. I still think this was a success.
Oh yeah, I actually think like you could like maybe go even a bit further with like a parallel buff. Like I feel like when you're carrying Ultimate Ezreal, like in the end game, like you're not even that incentivized to play like the other Ezreal with it. So I think it could actually go a little further. If anything.
Interesting. Our goal was that you really wanted Parallel with Ezreal, and like it was optional with Ultimate Ezreal. So it sounds like we might be in the right spot.
Oh, in that case, like yeah, maybe it's the right spot. I thought it was like a kind of thing where it's like, oh, if you're carrying Ultimate Ezreal, then you want him to be stronger.
No,
But yeah,
because we
that
didn't
makes
want you
sense.
to like awkwardly have to bring along a 2 cost the whole way. So it's like if you have it, cool. If you don't, it's all right. So
Yeah, I think like the thing about like the smaller Ezreal is actually like the interaction with quick draw of parallel is like it kind of makes base Ezreal a little bit weaker
yep,
because normally quick draw like you'll get the extra damage every spell he fires, but when you're playing parallel, it'll only be extra 2
yep,
spells
yep.
for every 2 spells. So
Yeah,
it
agreed.
feels like it makes him a bit
Plus,
weaker sometimes.
it doesn't help that right now Parallel is bugged with his carry augment, so you can't even go that option. So yeah, that's certainly an issue for sure. All right, quick draw. So this one's hard, man. Like I wasn't feeling this buff when we put it in, and then we put it in, and I think this buff in isolation might have been okay. It might have made the trait fine, but it really needed to come with like a bigger Lucian nerf, which we did an okay Lucian nerf, but certainly not big enough. I think, Kaisa also ended up being overbuffed, so the combination of all the quick draw changes was too much. I don't know that this one change was the incorrect part, so much as like where the power is otherwise. If anything, it's nice to see people actually play 3 and 4 quick draw. But like I said, the combination of the entire quick draw package was clearly too much.
Okay, I actually like somewhat disagree because so like vertical quick draw illusion reroll was already gaining some traction in 13.6.
Hmm.
I'm not sure like especially like in the last week of the patch, and I was like one of the players who was actually playing a lot of it.
Hmm.
And really the main issue with the comp was that it just gets countered so hard by like Oxforce frontline. Like it's really so I thought that once Oxforce frontline kind of went away, this would be already become one of the best comps, which is I guess kind of hard to foresee. The other thing is like it feels a little bit weird to me that like let's say you're carrying Lucian, like 4 quick draw can be like maybe around like a 100 or 110% damage increase.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas like if you compare it with something like playing like 7 Renegade with your Lucian, that's only going to be like a 70% damage increase. So I think it's a bit weird that like you always want to opt for playing quick draws with the quick draws. I don't know if that's like intended, but it feels a
Yeah,
bit weird to me.
that's fair. The logic behind it was that Renegade ups all your damage, whereas Quick Draw only ups your spell damage. So that was why it's tuned a little higher. Um, Renegade can also be more of a wide team, but I think that's a fair comparison. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. So maybe it was just an overbuff in general. Yeah, it's tricky because, like I said, the bigger problem is too. Like again, you mentioned Lucian, and Lucian as a one cost is just carrying way too much power of the trait. Because the way I kind of frame it is like, would you play 4 quick draw Misfortune right now? And it's like that's an okay comp. It's not amazing, but like Lucian is. We didn't talk about it at the beginning, but Lucian is like one of the most egregious things this patch for sure.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I guess like the other thing I'm like a little bit worried about with quick draw being like a very good trait is that like misfortune kind of has to be balanced around that like 4 quick draw mark.
yep.
But that kind of means that like a vertical anima with misfortune and playing like 0 quick draws, like I feel like that's really fallen out of the meta.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know if you'd agree with that.
Misfortune's definitely balanced around like you're supposed to be able to play either 7 anima 2 quick draw or 5 anima 3 or 4 quick draw. And so that's where she's supposed to be balanced. It's always tricky when you have these champions that have 2 multiplicative, you know, offensive amplifications, right? Lucian has both Renegade and Quick Draw, and they multiply each other. Misfortune has Anima and Quick Draw, and they multiply each other. I think if anything, maybe there's some set design learnings there as well of like having that double damage amplification built into your traits. Because what happens is if you don't play one of those traits or either, you end up with a very weak champion, right? Like Lucian actually feels okay to bad with just no traits active. But again, there's just so much power in that multiplication of just 3 Renegade, 3 Quick Draw, right? It's like so much power.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of which, Renegade. I mean, we buffed 7 here and a tiny buff to 5, which was good. Renegade needed it. If anything, might need a little more. 7 Renegade is not something I think people are like super excited to chase. So I would say directionally correct, but
Yeah, I feel like you still are almost always playing 5 plus a bunch of supportive units instead of
yep,
playing like maybe like the 1 or 2 costs for 7. So
yep,
I think 7 could maybe even be a little bit more.
yep, agreed. Spellslinger. This was one of the changes that came in pretty last minute, trying to get Twisted Fate down to a good spot. Pretty happy with this. I think Spellslinger is still played. I think right now the 4 to 6 jump, I could see 75 being the correct number because the 4 to 6 jump is very debatable right now without the augment. I think if you have the augment, then you definitely go 6. But that line's really close. But overall, it feels like Spellslinger is definitely an okay option. Obviously, it requires some really hard positioning around the hackers and things like that, but it doesn't seem like Spellslinger's completely out of the meta.
Oh yeah, I think Spellslinger is in a pretty good spot. Like I still see TF being pretty popular.
Yep.
I think if anything, like maybe Nico could use like a little bit of love as like a primary carrying Spellslinger. It feels like you kind of want to lean towards like Twisted Fate, but I think the trade itself is like where it should be.
Yeah. Sure Shot. This was a small buff to the trait, as well as like the Samira buffs and things like that later. It seems like Sure Shot is doing okay right now. I could see a tiny bit of power maybe ending up in like Sivir or Samira, but it's been nice to see Sure Shot be playable again. So we've seen some AD games where they win. Again, they also struggle with some of the hackers if you get some backline access and bad positioning. But it does seem like some of the most capped boards, keep in mind I say most capped ignoring the path it takes to get there because the path is hard, but the most capped boards are Sure Shot boards.
Yeah, I think Sure Shot's actually like right where it should be. And once like Hacker is tuned down a little bit and maybe like quick draws with Lucian, I think it'll be like in a really good spot.
Cool. All right, on to champions. Gangplank. So, I mean, the trial by fire no longer cleansing. That was a bug fix. The buff was directionally correct, but Gangplank is still, in my opinion, the worst champion in the game. I don't even like running a free 2-star Gangplank on 2-1. I don't like this champion. I think he needs more buffs.
Yeah, I think Gangplank also needs more buffs. Okay, I think my worst champion in the game might be Nasus, but I do think Gangplank
Yeah,
definitely needs buffs.
it's Nasus or GP. Like those are the two that
Yeah.
are like clearly the two worst, and everything else is like then there's a gap. It's like they're so
Hmm.
bad. Cool. Lucian. Okay, well the good news is I'm glad I got this nerf because this was another one of those like we snuck it in at the last minute changes. Could you imagine if I hadn't got this in? Woo!
Yeah.
So glad I got this in, but clearly was not enough. Lucian is my gold medal for I think the most egregious thing in the set right now. I don't think a Lucian 3 on 3-1 is supposed to be deleting frontline units in a single cast. So this was clearly not enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Lux. Again, directionally correct. It was good that Lux got buffs. I think the missile speed helped a little. It didn't move the needle enough. Lux carry augment is still garbage. You do not want to invest in Lux. She's an okay utility for like some early game and some AD reduction. She's very good anti-Draven tech. If you're running Spellslinger, you're like, great, she lowered Draven's AD. But she's still garbage and she needs more.
Yeah, I think Lux needs a little bit more. I think the carry augment like definitely needs love. Like changing the targeting from
Yep.
random to closest actually hurt her carry augment a lot because a lot of the time you just
Yeah.
like randomly one shot their carry, but now that's not really happening anymore. You're always hitting front line. So
Yeah, it was healthier for the game, but way worse for her.
yeah,
The targeting was mostly to like help you get a kill. So like in the early game, it wouldn't just leave everyone at like 20% health, and you could actually finish off frontliners and preserve some health. So it helped in that regard. But like you said, as a carry you invest in, she just gets stuck on frontline.
yeah.
Cool. Kaisa. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this change in the sense of like she's a little bit more glass cannon. Her itemization makes way more sense. She used to be 50-50 physical magic. Now she's much more magic based. So all that stuff I'm like really happy with. We just overshot it. This 150 should have been like 135, 140. Again, combined with the quick draw changes. But directionally, like I said, I think now Kaisa's itemization makes sense. This combined with her carry augment, she's actually a fun carry to play again. So overall happy, but again, overshot it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like Kaisa is very clearly AP now. Like Death Cap, Archangels, like two of her best items.
Yep.
But yeah, she's like, especially on like stage two, like Kaisa 1 is like such a menace. Like it does like so much damage, and it's like so hard to beat like a Kaisa 1 in stage 2.
Yep.
And I also feel like multi-shot is like just how it interacts with quick draw. Like it procs like super often, and then I feel like multi-shot might need a bit of a nerf.
Yep. Yep. Agree. Gnar. Okay, so this is one that I think, again, in hindsight, everyone's going to go, Gnar's dominating the meta. How dare do you do these buffs? I don't think these buffs were bad. I actually think a little bit of starting mana, who cares? And 5 armor and MR did not change much. I actually stand by these changes. Again, I would maybe talk about the hacker changes or the gadgetine changes, but I actually think these changes were fine. So I kind of stand by them.
No, I agree as well. Like people aren't complaining that like a random Gnar carrying items in the early game is too powerful. They're
Right.
more complaining about like when you have like the 5 gadgeting Gnar and you're
Yep.
hackering in onto the backline. So I'd say like those aspects are a lot more of a problem than like these like small buffs that Gnar got. I think this is
Yeah, it's interesting on the team because we've been debating how to proceed. Like, is it Gadgetine that needs nerfs or is it Gnar that needs nerfs? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it's definitely one of those, like, one of the harder things about balancing TFT is, like, you might know what's too strong, but the question is how to lower it, right? And what to change. So, Morgana. I'm really happy with these changes. I've actually seen a few Morgana carry games, like, she's almost like she doesn't quite hit that line of like an S tier carry, which is good. She never should with the amount of utility she provides. But people play Morgana. She's like kind of okay anti-hacker tech. She provides a lot of utility. I'm happy with Morgana as a champion.
Oh yeah, I'm very happy. I was actually like a little bit nervous about Morgana buffs because I already felt like she was like pretty playable before the patch. Like I was really happy to
Yep.
tech her in against hacker if I needed to like shred. But I think she's in a really good spot right now. I think she's actually like very surprisingly strong in the early game because
Yep.
when your opponent's only playing like 4 or 5 units, being able to stun like 2 of them is actually like a really
Yeah.
big deal.
That was kind of the goal is we wanted you like if you got a Morgana out of a box at 2-1, I think in 13-6 you basically threw it away every time. And then now in 13-7 it's like, no, I might play this for a while. This is pretty good opener. So
Yeah, like when Vel'Koz was good in set 8, it was like he was like good late game, but not very good early game. But I feel like Morgana is like good early and late, so I feel like she's a lot healthier in that aspect.
Nice. Vex. So this is one where I'm happy with the shape of the spell now. I really hated that the spell was doing full damage to every unit it hit and would just like delete backliners for a 3 cost. But I still feel like Vex is just a little below the line right now. If you get it like a fully capped mascot board, sure, it can maybe compete okay. But man, the path to get there is so hard after the mascot nerf. So overall, my line is I still think Vex is a tiny bit weak, but again, directionally correct. And I'm glad she doesn't one shot backliners now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like in the same boat as you. Like, I think Vex is on the weaker side and usually like not really worth playing. But I know that there are like some players who actually, even now, like really like playing Vex and they really like playing vertical mascots. So I guess just being careful about like buffing it
Yeah,
too much.
yeah, that's the thing. I've seen it be successful, and so like
Mhm.
that line is going to be really careful. So
Yeah, but I guess like in mascot comps, it feels like you're kind of like you almost want to carry like Aurelion Sol over Vex right now. Like I don't know if you've seen that a lot, but
yeah, I can see
the
that.
comp, yeah, people have been like playing like Aurelion Sol with like a mascot frontline a lot, but
Yeah,
neglecting the Vex a bit. So yeah, putting some power in Vex I think would be okay.
I think as long as it's true that Aurelion Soul 2 is better than Vex 2, but Vex 3 is better than Aurelion Soul 2, I think that makes sense and can be okay. But if it's Aurelion Soul 2 is better than Vex 3, we've screwed up, right? And so
I'm not sure it's quite there, but yeah, I mean
it's
I don't
close,
play
yeah.
too much Vex, but yeah,
Well, and I think Aurelion Soul is safer, right? Because if you don't hit the Vex 3, you're doomed.
yeah,
And I think
exactly.
that's the risk. So, yeah. Cool. Belveth buffs. They were good. Belveth is like playable. I actually think Belveth could use a tiny bit more, just really minor. She's just a little below the line. But Belveth is actually decent right now.
Uh, I haven't played around Velvet too much recently. I would definitely say she's like maybe a little weaker than where she could be, but um,
That's fair.
yeah, I mean she's noticeably better than before the buffs, but yeah, I think she could use a little bit more.
Yeah, the challenge with Belveth is because she's a threat, you always have to make sure that like she doesn't dominate stage 2 and 3. And so I feel like right now that's where she's decent is like you drop an early Belveth, you play around that, but she's never your end game carry, and that's kind of the limitation of not having any traits. But I think if you compare Belveth to Aurelion Sol, you're right. Like Aurelion Sol's just better.
Mhm.
Cool. Garen. Okay, so these buffs, I think going into this patch, everyone was looking at these buffs going, "Welp, it's going to be a Garen lottery." I saw a lot of people talking about it's going to be a Garen lottery. The good news is it didn't turn out to be a Garen lottery. The question is Garen too strong right now? And if Hacker gets nerfed, will Garen become the meta? Um, my thought right now is that Garen is exactly where he should be, or maybe the mana buff was a mistake. Maybe. But I'm happy with the HP change. I'm happy with the lower damage, higher stun. Those I think were correct. The mana buff is the one I'm kind of raising my eyebrow at. But overall, I'm glad to see Garen frontline mech be played, and it doesn't seem insanely dominant. So,
Yeah, I think like this patch like right now, I think Garen's in a very good spot, but I'm definitely pretty worried that like once some of the nerfs to the meta comps come
yeah.
through, like Lucian and Hacker,
Oxforce.
Oxforce, etc. Like I feel like Garen could very quickly become very dominant,
Yeah.
so I'd be a bit worried about that.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair worry, right? Is like currently he might be in a good spot, but yeah, I could see that. Misfortune nerf. I think this was good. Combined with a quick draw. Again, to your point earlier, maybe she's too dependent on quick draw, but I think MF is not dominating the meta by any means. She's playable. Seems fine.
Yeah, I think like and that's like a bit of a weird carry where like players in high elo might like think like oh like 7 Anima MF is like too weak, but then in low elo she actually seems like really dominant. Like when I
Oh yeah,
read Reddit, I see a lot of complaints about like oh Misfortune's like one-shotting my whole board, and
yeah.
like I don't really feel the same, but yeah, I think like you definitely have to balance around like everyone. So
Yep. Yep. Anima has been the challenge, and definitely I've gotten the DMs going, how do you let MF ship? And I'm sitting there looking at the GM plus data going, like that? It's fine. But yeah, big boom casters that delete your board when they get too strong are definitely some of the frustration experiences for lower elo players for sure. Cool. Samira is now uninterruptible. Good change. Should fizzle less often. I mean, less, yes. Still fizzles occasionally. I don't know that we're ever going to be able to fix this one, unfortunately. But at least it's less, so it's better.
Yeah, I think it's pretty noticeably less. And it does feel good to actually be able to kill Eternal Winter now.
Yep.
So I'm glad about the not interruptible change.
Yes. Twisted Fate. So obviously needed a nerf. Got a nerf. My hot take is that it's actually not enough. I think you mentioned compared to like Nico. I think if you compare Twisted Fate to Jin and Samira, that like Twisted Fate is actually still a leg up above them. The reason it's fine right now is because we're seeing the 3-cost meta, LeBlanc and Gnar and stuff like that are easier to play, the Lucian. But I think if those all get nerfed, we're actually kind of right back to a Twisted Fate meta. And so my thought is it might actually not be enough here.
Mm, okay, I'm not sure I entirely agree. I feel like Twisted Fate is in a pretty good spot. I think if you want to do like some slight Twisted Fate nerfs, maybe they should also come with some slight like Nico buffs for like spellslingers. But I feel like Samira, you're like a lot of the time you're playing Samira with like a mech Garen frontline, and like Twisted Fate has like a really hard time killing like a Garen with like a Dragon's Claw on it.
Yeah,
So I feel
that's
like
fair.
Samira can just beat Twisted Fate pretty easily.
That's
Maybe
fair.
it's just because of what I prefer to play. Like I don't really prefer to play Twisted Fate, and I enjoy like the AD lines more. But
Hmm.
I don't know if Twisted Fate needs a nerf.
Well, the good news is he's not getting one, so I spoil that for next patch. He's not getting another nerf, but I'm a little concerned. Like the thing that might keep him in line though is that Oxforce, that rework that's coming, might keep him in line because that was his best front line by far. So it might be okay. I'm always worried about buffing Nico because like Star Guardian Nico can do some serious work. It's another one of those comps right now that's really lacking frontline. Compared to again the Garens and the Ox Forces of the world. But I think if you fix that, Nico might be too strong. So I'm always hesitant to give Nico more buffs, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's true for sure. Like Vertical Star Guardian is pretty good. I think the Star Guardian plus ones are performing very well, but
Yeah.
it seems like usually we'll play them with like some sort of like Kaisa and then like Star Guardian MF or something like that, and then you're
Yeah,
trying to
that's true.
re-roll the Rella and Nyla front line instead of playing around like Echo and Nico as like the 4 cost. So
That's true. That's true. Warwick. Okay, so this change needed to happen, and it's nice that Warwick is at least kind of playable right now. It does require some very specific setups with like admin, scoped weapons, etc. But like this change needed to happen so that he wasn't so ridiculously dependent on things like Hurricane. So I don't know. Warwick is like a little below the line right now, but not much.
yeah, I think this is good. Like I think Hurricane could still maybe be considered like one of his best items even
Yep.
after this change. So I think it definitely needed to happen. Like
Yep.
Hurricane was like way too good on him.
Fiddlesticks and Urgot buffs. I think these were both successful. It's funny, you can always tell the quality of the 5 costs based on how well high-end shopping is doing in the meta. And right now, high-end shopping is not doing that great. So these changes were correct and safe and didn't break anything. So pretty happy with these changes.
Yeah, I think Fiddle and Urgot are like right where they should be. I wouldn't go any further than
Agree.
this. Like
Agree.
2 star is like very good, and then 1 star is like yeah, sometimes you're gonna have something better than that to put on your board,
Yep.
which is where I think it should be.
Yep. Agreed. Ultimate Ezreal bug fix. Yep. Needed to happen. No big deal. Didn't really break him or anything. He's still a good champion. So cool. All right. Hero augments. I'm going to go through these like 4 at a time. Stop me if I say anything that sounds incorrect. Kale support getting a buff. Yep. It's still weak. Might need even more. Lucian. So this one was fixed, but not quite properly. It was supposed to be 147. It's actually 258. So it actually ended up being kind of neutral. Next patch that's being fixed, so it'll get that buff we wanted. What I'll say is like this is actually the healthy version of Lucian because at least you're not playing the reroll comp. So I don't know. It should be fine once it's fixed. So
Yeah, I think this augment's actually like very good right now. Like using it to like get to like level 8 or level 9 really quickly is actually very strong. So yeah, as long as it's I mean I don't totally understand if the changes are like a buff or like neutral, but yeah.
Well, I mean, they were meant to be a buff when we made this change. It was meant to be a very clear buff. Because you get the delayed cast, it takes 2 casts to get that first XP. It ended up being neutral. So when we fix the bug, it will be the nerf that or the buff that was intended.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, I have a game on YouTube where I got this early with a blue buff, ended up like fast nining into every legendary you can conceive of. You know, it's like definitely that's what it intended to do. So it's doing its job. So, Kingslayer. Honestly, looking back, this nerf didn't need to happen this patch. It was definitely overperforming before. I think Anima kind of got hit with a few changes, and so right now it's kind of underperforming. So, but hopefully in the long run, this ends up being the right change.
Yeah, I think like something funny that's kind of happened with Kingslayer is like you click Kingslayer, but then you're like carrying Lucian. Like you're just
Yep.
clicking it to play like a Silas front line in like the Lucian call. So
Yep.
and that's definitely not where it wants to be. So
Agreed. Annie, this buff was good. This still isn't a super popular augment. I think as we move forward, maybe, Spellslinger will become more prevalent, and maybe it can do some work. So, but the buff needed to happen.
yeah, I think it needed to happen and probably not enough. Like I feel like you would always rather have Burning Spirit over Pyromania, but
That's fair. I feel like if you can get this augment and get a 3-star Annie, it's really good because you basically get a Garen that doesn't cost you 2 units. But agree that that's a very narrow case. So, Jinx, this change was correct. Again, I think Jinx and Anima need a little love, but the augment was carrying too much of the burden of power. So this is fine.
yeah.
Okay, cleansing safeguard. So cleansing safeguard is like it's the best example of like all these augments I've been having this trouble balancing, because cleansing safeguard is still, if you get 2 Lee Sins with full itemization and a heart backline, they're still impossible to kill. It's just now getting there is so hard that the stats look terrible and the times you're supposed to play this are too narrow. And so this ended up being an over nerf. Granted, it's nice to get a break from cleansing safeguard, so I'm sure everyone's breathing a sigh of relief there. But it ended up being a very slight over nerf. I think next patch I'm putting the heal back to 15%. But again, it's just these carry augments that require very specific setups. They either cross into the line that old cleansing safeguard did, which is it's too easy to get it to OP, or like current cleansing safeguard where it's too hard to get it where it's good, so it's never worth the risk.
Yeah, totally. I mean, cleansing safeguard totally needed a nerf. I think people are very tired of it.
Yeah.
I think it's an augment that's like really hard to balance because like either you have like enough damage to kill the Lee Sin and then you just like kill it and then you kill their whole backline, or like you don't have enough damage and that just like stays out like 1 HP and like keeps healing up like over and over and keeps like giving their team more heart stacks.
Yep.
So I think it's just a really challenging to balance augment innately.
Like I said, maybe nice to have the break from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Malphite. So I mentioned this to Solus as we were talking, but like again, this is the thing about making changes a week beforehand. But we had done the mascot nerf right as we locked in these changes. I wish I hadn't done both. So like this augment didn't actually need a nerf after the mascot change. So this ended up being a mistake. But at least it's still like kind of playable, barely. But again, with that, the mascot nerf really hurt this.
Yeah, I actually think this augment is like still like somewhat playable. It's probably weaker than it should be, but it's not in like a terrible spot or anything. Like
Yeah.
I think, especially in like AD lobbies, like if everyone's playing AD, then this augment can actually be quite good.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, AD lobbies Malphite will be very good. Agree, but yeah, that's why I just kind of wish it just still sat at 130. So
yeah.
Pike, this change was good. So it's trade sector and you have to play Pike. All right, cool, happy with this.
Yeah. It feels like there's not much incentive to take it on 3-2, but I don't.
Yep.
I'm not really sure how you'd go about like addressing that. So
I mean,
yeah, it's basically trade sector with a bike.
yeah, you'd have to do Pike your cut plus.
Yeah,
So
which is a little clunky. So.
yeah, Sivir mana tempering, fine. 5% AD didn't break it. It's fine, no problem. Yasuo, oh god, this augment, man. Look, let's just not beat around the bush. Somebody messed up. The behavior got bugged, and because of that, this augment is basically unclickable. We think we fixed it next patch, so that hopefully it should be better. We did actually run some sims with it yesterday after we did the fix, and actually because I was gonna buff it to 30%, and after we did that, and we were like, oh god, it's actually dominating. So we had to undo the buff. So hopefully next patch it's fixed. But this patch, clearly someone messed up. And like, I've seen so many clips of like Yasuo just shooting towards his bench and hitting no one with it. It's bad. So, oops.
Yeah, I've been like too scared to click on it because of the stats and everything, but I've heard that it actually like kind of like aims at like your own team, like the largest line of your own team or something like that. I'm not sure if that's
something
true.
It's not quite what it was, but basically something went very wrong. So Gnar carry. So this is another one I think people's reaction is going to be like, oh, see, that's why Gnar. Not really, actually. Like the Gnar carry augment's not even good for the Gnar comp. So like this change might have actually been fine, and this augment might actually still be bad when Gnar is good. But this is not why Gnar is good right now.
Yeah, this is definitely not why Gnar is good. Actually, the two best augments in the Gnar comp right now are Recursion Matrix and
Shen.
Small Game Hunter. It's not any of the Gnar augments, so this change is definitely not the issue. I think if anything, you could go with a little bit more.
The Shen one you mentioned, the Recursion Matrix, that's the good one. You get the 24% DR on top of your Gadgeting 30% DR. Whew! That is an unkillable Gnar. Yeah. Cool. Jack's carry buff. Yeah. Didn't move the needle enough, but yeah, cool.
Yeah. I think this is like, I mean, I know like some regions like China actually really loves playing Jax. Like you don't see it much in NA, but China loves Jax. So
yeah, agreed.
I think this is fine though.
Yep. Jack's support nerf, it needed to happen, and I think there's a world where like right now, I don't know where it's sitting in the stats, but
I think it's 4.5 on the dot.
Oh, well, we'll take that. But I mean, the worry here was in a Garen meta, this augment would be insane because it's basically Sure Shot getting a free 30% attack speed at the time, and giving Sure Shot 30% attack speed is insane. 24% is a lot closer, so it looks like hopefully it paid off. So
yeah, I mean, this augment is like very clearly incentivizing you to play mech, like to sacrifice your Jax at the start of the fight.
Yep.
So I think like how good it looks is just going to be dependent on how good mech is.
Yep.
Because it's going to be one of the best options if you're planning on playing mech and you see like a 2 or 3 cost to your augment.
Yep. Kaisa multi-shot, like you said, like the intention here, because before this, it was literally like one of the worst augments in the game. Like it was sitting at damn near the bottom. We wanted you to be incentivized to play your 2 quick draw to proc this more often, which it's doing. It's doing it a lot. The 10 AP was meant to be a balance lever. So if like, hey, we have to nerf it, 5 AP, 0 AP. If we have to buff it, 20 AP, so we had a lever. But I think, again, the combination of the quick draw, the Kaisa buff, and this was too much. So now it's swung, and it's one of the better augments. Not the best, thankfully, but one of the better. So again, the combination of the package was too much. So
yeah, I agree. Like Kaisa actually becoming an AP carry would have helped multi-shot a lot, and then this change also helped a lot. So
Yep.
Probably just a little too much together.
Yep. Okay, time knife. Okay, so clearly the miss here was we didn't test multiple Shens enough. Oops. And man, there's a longer conversation to be had about should all hero augments be strongest only, which, spoiler, next patch they will be. Which that'll probably end up in the learnings article. We can talk about that later. But for this, clearly that was a miss. Nobody wants 4 Shens running around, each doing 1350 true damage hits and destroying your team. So obviously we hotfixed it as quickly as we could, which, I mean, again, I'm still pretty proud of a 2-day response time. So I'll take it. After that, though, the question is, where is Time Knife? And I gotta say, post-hotfix, I'm actually really happy with this. It opens up a new type of carry for Shen, which is the point of carry augments. It's fun, and it's not oppressive. I don't know. I actually think after that, it was a success. What's your read?
Yeah, I think after the changes, it's like probably where it should be in that like I feel like it's like not gonna be like ever like dominating like high elo lobbies, but I think it's like really fun, and I think it's definitely like playable. Like you could definitely win games or do really well with it, and like maybe a lower elo bracket. So I think it's like in like a pretty good spot, and definitely one of the more exciting turn your tank into a carry option.
Yeah, I feel like if you have like a bow start and you get a 3-cost 2/1 hero augment, I think that's where we might even see it in like challenger lobbies. Because I think on 2/1, knowing that you can like build towards it, great. But I think, like you said, in challenger lobbies, you're never going to be like building towards it, hoping to hit it on 3-2 at this level. So I kind of agree with your read on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. What you just said. Like, you can't really be like making like rapid fire cannon and protector's
Yeah.
vow like on the off chance that you hit time knife. Like, you have to like make like normal items.
Right,
So
right. But
you would need
again,
like a
2-1,
2-1-0.
like
Yeah,
fuck it.
2-1 for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Vex, Joy Siphon. This needed to happen, obviously, because healing all your allies was insane. I think this is just going to be like right now in the stats, it looks pretty bad, which again is very much a power of the mascot and Vex and everything like that. I think the Augment's getting a small buff next patch, but I think this is a healthier version though, where it heals 2 targets, not the whole team. So it needed to happen.
Yeah, I think this is like definitely a very good change. I think like it's very likely to be outclassed by the other Vex augment, just because the other Vex augment is like very good, even if it's not that good in the data. If Vex is good, it'll be very good because
Yep.
you're building blue buff on Vex and you want AP. You want AP on your mascots, on your Vex, on your Aurelion Soul.
That makes sense.
So I think it's very likely to get outclassed, but I think this is definitely a healthier version of Joy Siphon.
Yeah, like I said, I know it's getting a decent buff next patch, so hopefully that's not as true, but that's a fair comparison. I agree with you. Aatrox Deathbringer. Again, like a lot of these other carry augments we're talking about, it can work when it works. It's pretty narrow to play around. I don't think this can be buffed anymore. I think it's actually a good number here. It's just got the same problem all these other narrow carry augments do, so it is what it is.
Yeah, it was actually like super OP at 50%, and it's still very good in like mascot comps. Like you're taking the slow damage but then healing it up.
Yep.
So I think like it probably needs to stay somewhere around here.
Yeah, you're talking about Darken Assimilation. Yep, same thing.
Oh yeah, Darkened. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
we skipped. No, it's fine. It's fine. But Darken Assimilation, I agree with you. Like 40%, that one's actually like right where it should be. I think it's a very good augment now,
yeah.
but I think it's right where it should be. So cool. Echo, we buffed this one. So I finally got a chance to really beat this up. So the number 250 is actually insane. With the right setup, which is something like Titan's Jeweled Gauntlet +1, you can do like 10,000 damage with your Echo, delete backlines. I've done really good things with it. The problem is Echo's roll sometimes goes the wrong way, not towards backline or towards the side, and you only get about 2 guaranteed casts with this. So it ends up being way too inconsistent to be something I think most people would ever really consider. And so next patch, I'm extending the range of the spell to 3 hexes and lowering the damage. Again, it still has the same problem we've talked about 9 times now, which is carry augment, narrow. You have to build items towards this that like most people aren't going to ever pick this. But I think for what it is, it's actually balanced. And yeah, same thing with my tweet where it's just like the realistic time where anyone's going to play Echo Destructive Resonance is pretty low.
Yeah, like if you actually like this augment looks like terrible in the data, but if you actually look at like people building the right items with it, it looks like a lot better, a lot more acceptable.
Yep.
So I think it's one of those things where you can't take the data like at face value.
Yep. Speaking of which, Garen full power to sword. I'm not gonna lie, this was we were really nervous about this change because this is a very large buff to an augment. But I think we actually landed it perfectly. I've played this a bunch, and with the right items and the right build, it works, and you can win games. It's very narrow. You're not going to see people forcing it. I was watching with Froden. There were a few people playing it in the China tournament, and they did very well with it. I actually think it's right in the right spot. So even though the data says it's crap, I don't think it's crap.
Yeah, you definitely want like IE Hodge Mech Garen if you're playing this, and then like if you're actually playing it with like IE Hodge Mech, it's like pretty good. So yeah, I think I'm fine with where it is.
Yep. Warwick, well fed. I nerfed this harder than I think I should have. I wish I hadn't done the autos per HP. I think that ended up being too big a nerf. And the reality is, even if it is balanced right now, which you could debate, it's not fun. It's not fun. Your number never gets to a very big number, and it doesn't feel very exciting. It's like, ooh, I got all the way up to 240. That's slightly better than boxing lessons. Woo! Which is not a great spot for an augment to be in. So I wish I hadn't done the autos per HP nerf here.
Yeah, it feels like to me like before how it was like, oh, if you have some sort of an HP admin, you want big data, and if you don't, then you want well fed. But now it kind of feels like you want big data in like
every
almost every
time
circumstance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this could probably use like a bit of a
Agreed.
revert or buff or something.
Agreed. Fiddlesticks. I mean, we buffed this augment. It still shows bad in the data. Same case. Very narrow to play around. You need a fiddle to... again, you can expect this in the learnings article, but these carry late game hero augments are just so narrow and require specific setups. So it didn't move the needle enough. So
Yeah, it's very like hard to like plan to play around these types of augments that need like very specific setups, but you only know if you're going to be able to do it by like
by
4-2.
4-2. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Same thing. Syndra, same thing. I mean, buffed, same question. And then Urgot was the last one. This is one that I actually think needs more buffs. Giving 2 units or 3 units 50% attack speed is barely even enough. So I think we could have gone further with this one.
Yeah, I think like I mean a lot of like how good this augment is just like how good Urgot is.
Yeah.
And I mean Urgot is like probably where he should be, but like for example, like back in set 8, like set 8 when Urgot was like really good, like this augment looked like very good even at 30%, but now that Urgot's like maybe a bit worse than that, like when he was like play on every board,
Yep.
it probably needs like a little more love.
Yep. All right. Ace Crest now only given at 4-2. Oops, that didn't get implemented correctly. It really should have, because Ace Crest is still a bait at 2-1 and 3-2. So next patch will fix that. And it giving a Draven helps a little, but like again, Ace Crest at 2-1 and 3-2 is still garbage. Nothing changed. Gotta fix that. Ace in the hole. So this is an interesting one. So same thing. It was supposed to only be 4-2. At 4-2, from what I can tell, this augment's terrible. I think a lot of people were, if you go read Reddit, it was like, this augment's going to be busted. Nope, not busted. Quite terrible at 4-2. But due to the bug, it's actually possible to get on 2-1. And getting it on 2-1 is good. It's like, what, 4.1, 4.2? It's good. But it's not actually game-breaking as a prismatic, which is really interesting, because I, as a designer, was telling the team, like, no, I'm not giving you a 4 cost on 2-1. That's ridiculous. It's too game warping. This might open up the design space for stuff like that in the augment space, which is really interesting if that's acceptable. And from what I can tell, it's like, granted, a lot of it is still people learning how to play it, because, like, you have to just, like, maybe playing 4 ace early is actually a bait, and you're supposed to wait till you stabilize your front line, and, you know, stuff like that. But overall, this has been a really interesting, happy accident. And so, you know, the augment's a little underpowered, but some stuff to take away from it here, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think a big reason why it doesn't look that good on 2-1 is like 4 ace is like a comp where like you really need like a lot of items to play around, right? Like you want a 3-item Smear, 3-item MF, and like more items for like frontline and stuff. But like obviously on 2-1, like you're not gonna have that. You're just gonna be playing Samira and MF like with no items, which is why it probably looks pretty balanced. But I think like if you have this with like upgraded frontline on 2-1, it can be like very, very strong.
Yep.
Like maybe even like a little too strong.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it's the perfect designed 2-1 augment, but again, like a prismatic giving you a 4 cost doesn't seem that game breaking, you know?
Yeah, I think it's like a lot. It's a lot better than I expected on 2-1.
Yeah.
Although I did have like a feeling that on 4-2 it wouldn't be very good because
okay,
it's pretty low like gold value, I guess.
So you're smarter than Reddit then.
No,
I admit, when I first saw the bug, like someone first sent me the screenshot of a 2-1, I was panicking. I was like, oh shit, we need to hotfix this like immediately. I thought it was going to be game warping, and it wasn't game warping. Like you said, it's strong, maybe even a little too strong, but it's certainly not game warping, which has been nice to see.
Yeah, nice, and also like pretty interesting for sure.
Yep. Built diff nerf for Built diff 3, good. Built diff 3 still very playable. It's a very good top 4 comp. Not the best winning comp, but a very good top 4 comp.
Yeah, still very good.
Yep.
I thought it was really interesting to see on your Twitter that like Built Different is not like a very popular augment in lower elos, because I feel like anytime Built Diff is good, like I'm always just like super happy to like insta click it on 2-1, but
Yep.
I think it's really interesting that it's not very popular in lower elo.
Yeah, it's hard to think about, right? It's a lot to take in. So, Hacker Heart granting a pike, didn't change much. It's fine. When Hacker is balanced, it might be acceptable. I'm sure people are looking at that going, Hacker. No, it's fine. It's fine. Laser Core Crests and Soul Augments being re-enabled. Yep, they're good. They were good +1s. Yep. Late game specialist. I think this change was good. It's 4 gold, but like late game specialist is one of those high risk, high reward. It's fun. Happy with it.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel much different than before, but I think it's like totally fine.
Yep.
I mean, I guess the reward for it didn't really feel like enough, so I think this is like definitely directionally correct. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
enough, but
From what I can tell in the data, the augment's exactly where it should be now, though, which is like it has a low top 4 rate but a high win rate, and that's what you want for this kind of augment. That's again very high risk, high reward. So, March of Progress. I think this change actually fixed it. The 2 XP here, like because again 13.6, it was looking nutty again in the data. The 2 XP made a big difference. The turn delay on each step made a big difference, and so March of Progress might finally be exactly where it's supposed to be.
yeah, I think it's like I mean, I wasn't expecting this to make such a big difference, but it actually made like such a huge change from being one of the best augments in the game to one that's like very balanced.
Yeah.
I think it was like a really good decision.
No one believed me last time when I was like, because when we made that first nerf to March of Progress and it went from the best to the worst, and it was like, this is a light change. This augment, man, this augment lives and dies on a razor's edge. This augment is a pain, but I'm happy to see it finally just be like, all right, it's good. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
Riftwalker not granting a pike is good, considering it was basically Vex plus Riftwalker crest equals GG. So that's good. Now you at least have to high roll both. Riftwalker crown granting a sparring gloves seems fine. Same thing. Any comment on those two?
No, not really. I think like it was definitely something where if you like, it's hard to find Vex in stage 2, but if you did happen to have a Vex, it was like pretty much impossible to lose with the Zac. So I think it's good to make it harder to get online in stage 2. I think it could also be something where it's only offered 3-2 and later. I think that would be fine with me as well.
Yeah, we were debating that. We've been trying to avoid that as much as possible, but again, this is that difference between the dreamy designer and the logical rulesy designers. It's like, we want to try to keep the like fantasy of like, oh, I hit it early, but yeah, it's definitely on that line. So, and then the Star Guardian crown nerf from a full item to a component was definitely needed. Augment's still good. It's still Star Guardian +1. So,
yep, still one of the best augments in the game actually.
Yep. So that definitely needed to happen. Cool. And then the small changes, I'll just go through these super quick. Prankster 4 buff. Yep, it honestly could still go higher. Riftwalker. If you ever had to face Riftwalker with 12 or 15 or like that one screenshot of 21 star levels, this change needed to happen. Again, the dreamy designer's going, oh, but that's fun. And I'm going, no, it's not fun facing a 7,000 HP Zac with 500 AD. No, we need to stop this. Underground gold from cash outs, good. That just feels good to have it not have to pick it up. Nico 3 buffs, yep, that needed to happen. And Janna works better with Infiniteam. Cool. So, and then we fixed a bunch of bugs. Woohoo! So, that's kind of the rundown. And like I said, definitely one of those patches that the frustrating things have caused a lot of frustration. Oxforce, Hacker, Gadgeteen. But, believe it or not, I don't actually think we're that far off from a really good meta. The next patch is looking pretty small. Like, obviously, we're hitting a few things very hard. But other than that, like, it's not that big a patch. So I think we're getting really close to, like, glitched out being in a great spot.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, when I was playing a tournament on this patch, I think one of the things I initially thought was, like, that, there's only a few playable lines in this patch, like Hacker LeBlanc and, like, Quick Draws and stuff. But I think that was actually, I was very mistaken. And I ended up playing, like, tons of different lines in that tournament and ended up doing very well. So I think this patch actually has like a lot more diversity than people would give it credit for. And I think it's like an okay patch, although some of the good things can be very frustrating to play against.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Even if, like, let's say LeBlanc is only 2% too strong, it doesn't matter. Nobody likes having their carry instantly blown up at the start of a fight, and so frustration is always going to be a thing.
The targeting can be like one of the most frustrating things about LeBlanc, like always targeting backline first.
Yep, which, spoiler, we're changing. So cool.
Definitely a good thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for coming on here and enjoying and talking through with me. Hopefully you enjoyed your time here. Anything you want to say as we close it out?
No, not really. Thank you for having me on. This was really cool.
Cool. Well, good luck in your tournaments, and I can't wait to see you do at the championship. That's going to be pretty fun. So, end of May, and hopefully you win the big bucks and maybe finally give NA their trophy they've been looking for so long, and the China dominance.
Yeah, should be super fun, and I'll keep grinding TFT and I'll do my best.
Nice, cool. All right, so that's gonna do it for this patch postmortem. Again, I don't do these first and last patch of each set, but you can expect these, for the next 3 or 4 patches or so, because we've got a bunch coming on. If you've got any guests you want to see, let me know. Comments, Twitter, whatever. Happy to bring other people on from various regions and get different perspectives. So yeah. All right, that's gonna do it for me. Until next time, as always, take it easy.